All right, everybody, come on in, come on in. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy. Hi, I am Maggie. Maggie, the substitute teacher. You may know me for my cooking channel. I make food and femininity content, but together with Lucy, we are the proud founders of the Finishing School for the Modern Woman, where we teach ladies of all ages in the real world how to be the best versions of themselves with elegance, etiquette, and femininity. But twice a week, we like to come into the virtual world with you all and give you our take on relationship topics and things that impact women, feminine women. Lucy and I have over 40 years of marriage experience combined, and we believe the older women should teach the young. So Lucy, please introduce yourself and let us know, what are we reacting to today?
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Lucy. I have a tiny channel that focuses on content about, it's so funny because first I started saying I have a small channel. Now I'm going tiny. That next is going to be very minimal. Anyway, the content is about femininity, elegance, and items or things that impact women over a certain age. And I think today's topic is going to be a good one because it has to do with how life impacts men and how, again, we as women, feminine, our compassion, our hearts need to be in the right place to understand, to try to understand the opposite side and see the beautiful things that they have to offer to us on an everyday basis all around the world.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. All right, so let me give you all our 2 disclaimers, and then we will go ahead and get started, and we will get it up on Lucy's channel. Like I said, Lucy and I come from traditional backgrounds, both immigrant families, so our perspective is on the young women who should prioritize marriage and family in their youth, if that's what you want. So if you want to do something other than that, that's totally fine. You probably just won't be happy here. And then the video is a long one. This one is a couple of hours, but I found a 30-minute clip that we're going to respond to. So if you want to watch it without our commentary or watch the whole video, you absolutely can. It's called Dating Psychologist: Why Men and Women Disagree About Respect. And this is Dr. Orion Taraban. He's an actual psychologist. We are not, but we love his content. He is quite the academic. So we're going to try and discuss this for us lay people, but I think there's definitely some good takeaways here. All right. So as always, we like to bring you all into the conversation, and we'll see what you all have to say. So let me go ahead and mute and share my struggle screen, and then we will get into it.
I wanted to ask you about this idea that men value respect more than they value love, whereas women love and they value circumstance. Let's say men and women are giving each other equal respect, whatever that means. They're giving each other equal respect. So then from the man's perspective, wouldn't that kind of be like he's not getting enough respect because the woman doesn't value the respect as much as she values love? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, we have to address some of the assumptions there, because I've heard this before, and it's actually fairly contentious, as you might imagine, right? So there was a book, I think it was called Love and Respect. I haven't read it, but I've so you take that as a caveat. But I've read the synopsis of it, and that book basically was based on a survey that was given to several hundred men and several hundred women, that basically asked them to make a forced choice, which was something like, would you rather be respected and alone, or would you rather be loved and like invalidated, or something like that? And what this survey found was that around 75% of men would prefer to be respected but alone, and 75% of women would rather be loved but invalidated. And the premise of that book is therefore that respect is more important to men and love is more important to women, which predictably caused a minor uproar among women. Because I think it would probably be more accurate to say that to a woman, she'd rather have both. Women hear that, it's like, well, why can't I have both? Why do I have to choose? I want to be loved and I want to be respected. And in fact, I think that study was replicated with a different sample. I don't remember the sample that was used from the book, but the sample that it was replicated on was a cohort of young women at Harvard University. So these were very ambitious, intelligent young women. And when they were forced to make that choice between being respected but alone and loved but invalidated, they responded like the men did in the previous study. 75% of them said that they would prefer to be respected but alone.
Oh my goodness, I find this fascinating already. So let's unpack that. And again, Dr. Taraban has a lot of background in these research studies. But what spoke to me based on what he just said, we've talked about this in previous streams, and we've said that for men, respect is more important, and ladies, because we are emotional creatures, feeling that love is more important, right? You can disrespect a man, yet tell him, I love you, and you will probably find yourself alone eventually. And women, if we're being very honest, a man can not treat us the best, but tell us all the things that tickle our ears, and we stay around. Ask yourself. What's fascinating to me is if that is the natural biology and the way we are wired. When they did this study with professional, accomplished women, you all see where I'm going, those of us with our big jobs and big degrees as a reformed modern woman, the women answered more like the men. Those accomplished women in this Harvard study. Am I saying school is bad? No. Am I saying accomplishments are bad? No. But ladies, the takeaway is that we just talked about this in the finishing school. A lot of those professional accomplishments will make you more masculine than maybe you are aware of. We'll start to chip away at that softness. We'll start to chip away at that femininity. And if you don't know, and if you're not aware, you will find yourself louder than you want to be, harsher than you want to be, harder than you want to be, and moving in a space and making decisions and taking preferences that are more manly, and then wondering why you don't have a man. All right, Lucy, what would you add?
And the fact that the concept of respect for men all over the world means the same thing is something that, ladies need to pay attention. Men see respect as love. We see love as, all the, birdies and the clouds and the rainbows. But for men, that respect is key. Once he feels that respect is gone, chances are that the relationship is not going to end up in a good spot.
I couldn't agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. You all are agreeing with each other. We're just getting started. We got a lot of people coming in. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Happy Valentine's Day after. If you celebrate, hello, hello, hello. And Irvin is saying so true. All right, ladies. So yes, if you want to be successful in relationship, what is the red thread here? A lot of the same traits and skill sets that you develop in the professional world can hurt you in your personal relationship. So you just need to be aware of that, move accordingly, and choose wisely. Because if you lack that self-awareness and you just show up, well, I'm me, and you need to respect me, you remind him of another dude. And that's not what a masculine man wants. And that's not what he's going to tolerate. All right. We got Next Level saying, come on in. The doors of the Holy House of Femininity are open. I'm late, so I'm holding my finger up as I come in. Good afternoon, ladies, and salute to the chat. Jurgen says it's a Disney fairy tale. Yes, happy Valentine's Day. All right, everybody, let's go back in.
So I think that we have to understand that the value of respect and love differ depending on the context in which you hope to transact the most value. If you're looking to transact value in the commercial or professional arena, why do you need to be loved? It's not nearly as useful as being respected. So if women more and more are looking to derive most of their value, most of their sense of self-worth in the professional arena, in the game of status in large society, it makes sense that they're increasingly going to value respect. I don't think it's necessarily a gendered thing, though I do think there tend to be some differences in how the genders tend to perceive. This is very difficult because, first of all, respect can mean many different things. I made a video about this, and one of the backlashes that it received was this conflation of two ideas that's meant by the term respect. Some people mean respect to mean like basic human consideration or dignity. And in that way, everybody deserves respect. But that's often not how it's being used in this context. Usually respect is being used to denote some sort of like acknowledgement of special significance or ability. And I think that's how men generally understand it, which is like, for me to respect you, you have to do something excellently. You have to demonstrate some ability or some competence that impresses me. And so you've earned that respect. In the sense of respect as basic human dignity, no one has to earn it. It's just as like given as an inalienable human right, right? But men tend to perceive respect more as something earned. Whereas women might think, well, I just want to be respected in kind of like the human dignity department. Now,
all right, let's unpack that. I love it. I love the way Dr. Taraban makes it just very plain and straightforward. It's so obvious. Sometimes we miss it. Okay, so he was talking about respect, and we've already said that ladies, especially those of us who go for those professional accomplishments, we may start moving in a masculine way, which turns off the very men that we want. So when it comes to respect, he said there's the respect that everybody gets. There's the respect that everybody should get, right? Just because I'm a human, just because you're no better than me or worse than me, we should respect each other. And I agree with that. And I think Dr. Taraban is saying he agrees with that too. You should treat people with respect. But that is not the way that men apply the term respect. So ladies, this is important to know how men think. If we think, well, you need to respect me because I'm me, men are looking at it like, why should I respect you? You haven't done anything to earn it. And before we get upset, if you heard what he said, men look at respect that comes as an action is done that is better than. You have earned it. You've done something amazingly. You have achieved something. And I never understood this. Ladies, do you understand why men don't like these participation trophies? we've got 8th place and everybody, gets to win. And the way men understand it is there's a lesson in the losing. There's a lesson in the trying and failing. This is how men become the men that we admire, with grit, with blood, with sweat and tears, and trying and failing and getting knocked down and getting back up, so that when they actually succeed at that thing, whatever it is, they have earned respect. Contrast that with us. If we're just being honest with ourselves, ladies, we just want to show up and be respected. Men don't look at it that way. So be very careful asking for something that you haven't earned. This is why men look at women who have stood the test of time in relationships with so much more regard than someone who just showed up. No matter how pretty you are, no matter how fit you are, all of that stuff is great, but you haven't done anything worthy of their respect. So for me, that's fascinating and very helpful when you listen to men. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. I think it's beautiful to see the two different ways that we see things. Men see, respect in being earned. And that's why those rites of passage rituals, remember in tribes and all of these different, areas that boys used to do, that's how they start earning that respect, earning their badge of honor, earning all those things. That's why the military, any of those places that require that ranking type concept, that's why it works so well for men, because that's about earning the respect every level of their lives. Whereas we women, we think that because we're women, the respect has to be there. Emotionally, we think that we are that respect, it's about human dignity. Yeah, men, they're human too. So we respect them that way. But when it comes to men looking at other men, and that respect means something that they have earned, and they have shown that they deserve that respect because of those actions they've taken. As of, opposed to us, we think we deserve respect because, we're feminine, we show up, and yeah, we're here.
I love that. I want to see what you all are saying in the chat. But first of all, Swavdi, thank you so much for the $15 coming in, saying greetings, ladies. So consistent and so generous. So yes, ladies, hopefully this may hurt a little bit, but hopefully it's helpful. If you find yourself saying, well, he disrespected me, or, you got to respect me. If you're howling at the moon and the moon does not care, ask yourself, what have you done that sets you apart from other women? Or are you offering the same thing that all of us have? Ask yourself, what have you earned that man can look at and say, you know what, that's a woman right there that needs to be treated differently because she has earned it. All right, let's see what you all are saying in the chat, and then we're going to go back in. All right, so we stopped here. All right, Charles D says, I think women value love more than respect. They want to be loved. And it's true. Ladies, you can argue me down if you want to, but how many of you have stayed in relationships where you knew this wasn't the man that was honorable or treating you in the way that you were proud to tell people, but he was doing all the things that you like? He was saying all the things that you like. He was making you feel all the emotions that I thought we were going somewhere. He told me he loved me. I thought. All right. So we can ask ourselves and be honest. We want that love more than we want respect. All right. Thank you, JTG says, well said. I'm glad this is helpful. Jasmine says, being respectful towards my husband has changed my marriage and made it such a beautiful experience. I love that. Ladies, here's something to learn, a piece of low-hanging fruit. You can start doing this instantly. If you have a man that you admire, hopefully you chose wisely, but whether you're married or you want to be married, start showing him respect, appreciating and acknowledging what he's done. Because if not, ask yourself, would you switch places with him? Do you want to take on that load? Do you want to carry the burden that he does? Or are you grateful that he has shielded you from that he's built this wonderful, warm and welcoming space where you can feel safe, and all of the darts that come from the world, he protects you from that. All right. You can start showing that respect immediately. Jurgen is saying facts. Thank you so much for agreeing. Dr. Steele says some women think that because they are women, respect should be automatic. So true, ladies. And I know we may get our feelings hurt. Respect all women, believe all women, do what you want to do. You all know I am not going to fight you here. But hopefully you understand that from a man's perspective, just showing up as a woman does not make you special. Just showing up as a woman does not earn you any additional treatment or benefits. You have not earned it. So just because you woke up today and you are a woman, don't expect men to just bow down before you. You will be disappointed and you will be alone. All right. C. Irving says, spot on, Lucy. A knight in shining armor earned his respect. That's true. I tell you all the time, ladies, find the men that you admire. Ask them. They all have an origin story. They all have tried, they have failed, they have lost money, they have slept on couches, they have taken those grunt jobs. They have all had to do something to become the men that we admire. And you should be respectful of that. Bert says respect is a two-way street. Jimmy H says, nice Super Bowl picture, lady. C. Irving says through trials and tribulations. Absolutely. And Bert says you got to earn the respect to get respect. So ladies, I tell you, if you want relationship, prioritize it early because you don't have a lot of time to earn the treatment that you think that you want. All right, we're going to go back in and see what else Dr. Taraban has to say.
Well, this also creates difficulties between men and women because it's very difficult for respect and sexualization to occur at the same time. Okay. So it's like a man who feels respect for someone does not feel sexual urges towards that person. Like the idea of like, I respect you for your strength or your intelligence or your prowess, and by consequence of that, I want to fuck you. Like that doesn't make sense. And in fact, in any kind of ritual or ceremony that's respect oriented, like a funeral or a graduation or an award ceremony, like sexualizing the recipient would be completely inappropriate. We would think that's almost disgusting, like we're tarnishing their respect. And so this is difficult because when a lot of men have been told since they were very young to respect all women, to respect all women, to respect all women, this can sometimes be interpreted by men to, well, I'm going to remove all of my sexual intent from my communications and interactions with women. Now, from a social perspective, a lot of women would be like, well, what's the problem with that? Because I get it. It's like to be inappropriately sexualized against one's will is not a pleasant or comfortable experience. And I would want to be sexualized in a professional context or by people that I would rather not be sexualized by. But if I'm also never sexualized by anyone, it's very difficult to enter into a sexual relationship now, is it? Right? So on some level, male sexuality requires the ability to compartmentalize the person from even like the body. Like male sexuality depends on objectification. It's very difficult to take a woman that you love and cherish and bend her over. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and that we also see this in the case of like the Madonna whore complex, which can happen after women give birth, is that men find it difficult to sexualize that woman because now she's not just his lover or his wife, she's the mother of his children. And so the woman gets bound up in his own psychological associations with motherhood, where there's lots of taboos around sexualization, right? And so a lot of times it's difficult when the man can't separate the mother from the wife to sexualize the woman. And that can create difficulties in that relationship.
So let's see what we can learn with that, coming in hot and heavy. All right, ladies. So a couple of things stood out to me. First, when he was talking about the attraction that is required, if you want a loving relationship, intimacy is a part of that. But here's the lesson again. These professional women, of which I am one, big job and everything. But ladies, when you lead with that, it takes away from your femininity. If you all have found yourself in these spaces where you're around the type of men that you admire, that you are attracted to, that you would want to be in relationship with, but they see you as one of the fellas. They see you as just another dude. Maybe they friend zoned you. Well, maybe it's because you beating your chest and saying, I'm senior director so and so, or I'm project manager or VP or whatever so and so, and you're going to respect me. Great. But what it does for a man is, okay, respect takes away from attraction. So again, am I saying not to work? No, I'm not saying that. But again, ladies, you're going to have to be able to know what is successful, what helps you be successful at work can hurt you in the type of relationships that you want. So if that's the hill that you want to die on, if everybody needs to know that you got letters behind your name and pieces of paper on the wall, fine, you won. Nobody's going to fight you. But when you are alone and nobody sees you as, a feminine, attractive woman that they, have desire for, ask yourself, did you lead with masculinity that turned him off? The second thing I wanted to say, when he talked about, these other complexes, and again, I am not a doctor, but ladies, married women, do not deny your husbands once you all have children. It's really important that we continue to prioritize our men. The men that we are attracted to, they are attracted to us and they want to act on that. And yes, of course, men understand when, we have children, things change, but prioritizing your marriage and still allowing yourself to be, desired and desirable, even if you don't feel that way. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where now you're holier than thou. I could never, I'm a mother. It's not good for your relationship. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
Exactly. And that I could never, I'm a mother. That's why you're a mother, because you didn't think like that before you you had those babies. So again, that's a very important part of, of a relationship. That is such intimacy. That's sharing that, that vulnerability on both sides. And I love that he said about men having to compartmentalize some of the things, because, I can totally see my husband, at the beginning, he was so respectful that it was so, I mean, I could see the pain that it took for him to, to get to a different space, because he already had that respect of me, my family, and my parents. And, it's fascinating. And that goes back to, women being taught by feminism that no matter what you wear out there, the men are going to have to respect you. And I learned that they're teaching that to kids. I learned that with one of my nieces, where she was wearing a little cut off t-shirt, and I said, you know what, that's not good to go out there. And she goes, men, they're not supposed to watch me. I can walk out there, without any clothing, and they're still supposed to respect me. So that's the kind of concept and things that these ladies are being taught. That's why you see all of these young women in OnlyFans Only Fools showing their things to people that they have no idea. And then they wonder later on when they're 30, 35, why they don't have a man that's respectfully asking them to marry them. Because for men, that showing your body like that, it's also a lack of respect to them. So again, just be careful, when all else fails, err on the side of modesty than going out there and showing your body to men that really, to people that really shouldn't be looking at you. And if you have somebody special on, trying to, court you, that's the last thing you want to do when you're not around him. Start showing your body when he's not around. Even when he's around, it's part of you trying to protect your man, having to get into arguments over a man looking at you a different way.
Such a good point. I want to see what you all are saying in the chat. But again, ladies, now that we know that respect from the man's perspective is earned, if you look like Attack of the Clones, if you look like every other woman that's out here, if you're showing every other body part like everybody else, what have you done that sets you apart? What have you done that earns respect? Ask yourself. And if the answer is nothing, don't expect what you have not earned. All right, let's go back in and see what you all are saying. All right, so Charles has a question for Jasmine, if you want to answer. What was your behavior towards your husband before that change, before you were respectful? If you care to share, we will talk about it. Say What says, I love and cherish my wife, and I'm always trying to admire her. Thank you. Jasmine says, respect is the path to being cherished as a woman. Jürgen is agreeing. And Jürgen says, feminist women act like men, and most men don't want other men. Ladies, I'm going to tell you, I asked my man this when he said, nothing about you should remind me of another man. And I was like, wow, okay. So ladies, take some inventory. Am I saying you got to be dressed to the nines and you got to be perfect? No. But do you come in all loud and kicking down the door and saying, all eyes on me? Do you swear like a sailor? Are you vulgar? How is your hygiene? Do you carry yourself like just another dude? Or is there something different about you that a man who wants a woman can admire? And I asked him, I said, when you're around women who aren't nurturing, who aren't loving, who are just kind of like, whatever, what is that like as a man? He's like, hanging out with my brother, hanging out with the fellas. So again, ladies, you can be surrounded by them. You can be at the barbershop or playing the video games and, whatever in their environment. But you should stand out for the right reasons. A lot of young ladies now are trying to just blend in and just be one of the boys, taking shots, doing all these vulgar things. Do what you want to do. You all know I am not going to fight you, but your results will be what you have acted out on. So again, ask yourself, are you getting the outcomes that you want? And if not, ask yourself, why not? All right, let's go back in.
So objectification is is that a necessary component for a man to get aroused, or is that the result of arousal?
I think they're probably in a reciprocal influence. Like the more aroused a man is, the more likely he's going to compartmentalize and objectify. And on some level, the ability to compartmentalize and objectify makes it easier to get aroused. We see this in like the types of pornography that men and women use. It's like there's really no narrative to men's pornography. It's like, oh, a pizza's here and now, we're fucking. So it's like there doesn't need to be that context. The other person isn't really a person. The other person in most male pornographies are just like a tool for sexual satisfaction. And that can make women uncomfortable, right? Because they don't want to feel like they disappear in the act of the sexual encounter. But the more that the person is present, the harder it is to objectify.
Do you think that has to do with the fact that men become aroused very easily? So, for example, a man can kind of, let's say, imagine what's valuable to him sexually at almost any moment's notice. But for a woman to really consider what turns her on, she has to first be in that state, or she's not really accessed, or it's kind of harder for her to get into that mindset of like, oh yeah, okay, I guess that would be a turn on for me. Or do you think that has nothing to do with it?
That might be possible because it's a state-based phenomenon. It's like I don't know any man who does enjoy watching pornography when they're not feeling aroused, so they can use pornography in order to get aroused, right?
Right. Like they could be, it could be there, and then they just see it and they're kind of a little aroused, right? It's not too much is required to get into that mental state.
Yeah, I think that men tend to be aroused more easily and more quickly than women. Yes.
So to clarify my question, I was asking more, why is it hard for women to kind of so you were saying how let's be respectful all the time and never sexualize women. Women are thinking like, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love that. I'd love not to be.
Because they're thinking about, I don't want to be inappropriately sexualized when I don't want to be.
Okay.
That's what I think anyway.
I guess I'm just wondering, it like, are you trying to say that they don't, not some part of them is like, well, I want to be sexualized sometimes.
Yeah, you would think, right? But when you talk about respect all women, this is a political and social mantra. It takes place in that context. But when men hear that, they think at all times, under all circumstances. But yeah, there should be a little asterisk next to that, which is that a lot of women would prefer to be sexualized by the men that they would prefer to be sexualized by, right? But they leave that part out. And so a lot of guys just hear, oh, respect all women, all the time, under all circumstances. And that often leads to them repressing or even denying their own sexual attraction or interest to other women, which generally doesn't lead to sexual relationships.
So earlier we were talking about how, this concept of men prioritize respect over love, or at least some people are saying this, men prioritize respect over love and women prioritize love over respect. Do you think it's safer to say that simply they have different conceptualizations of respect?
Well, they certainly do. Like the word that I think that women might want to use instead is consideration. I think that women want to be taken into account. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like their preferences matter and that the man is willing to accommodate her feedback and her interests and preferences.
I see.
Which I think is consideration. I think that's a better word for it.
As you were saying earlier, men respect each other's skill level, their competence, what they've achieved, and so on. But I think there's kind of a thing in the man's world of whose idea should we consider, whose opinion should we consider? Well, only the guy who has the most, or the guys who have the highest experience with this. So, for example, if you have like a 10-year kickboxer and a guy who just started, he's like, oh, well, I want you to hear my opinions about how to kick. They're like, no.
Sure, yeah.
Right. So.
All right. So let's see what we can learn from that. A little bit of a slippery slope. But what it made me think of, ladies, is, and I've been in a relationship since I was 18, so I don't have dating experience like that. But you see a lot of women complaining now that men don't approach, men don't, talk. A lot is lost in this, like you said, the respect all women, which of course you want to respect people for just being people. But now that we understand men look at respect differently and they disconnect it from attraction, what's happening now is that, okay, you're shouting at me to respect you. So you are basically like a robot. So men do not see us in a way that's like, you know what, I want to get to know her. I want to flirt a little bit. That thing that is natural, I think, between men and women that are attracted to each other, that flirting, that little bit of a dance, like Lucy calls it, goes out the window. And now things are just weird. People don't know how to talk to each other. People are awkward. I don't know. Should I hug you? Should I shake your hand? Like, I don't know. So ladies, I would just say this. If this is what you're experiencing, maybe you have been leading with respect me, or you need to respect me. And maybe you mean something other than that. Maybe you mean consider me. Maybe you mean be kind to me. Maybe you mean, get to know me. So just be careful. I think, the feminism and a lot of this beating our chest and leading with accomplishments, and I can do anything a man can do. You all know I'm always saying we are not equal. Here's a perfect example of how we are not equal. We are equally valued, but we are very different. So maybe there's a few tweaks that you can make that can help you get the outcome that you want. What would you add, Lucy?
Okay, first I want to say that I didn't know that we're going to get into the spicy things that much. Again, this is live reaction. We're listening to this, as it's happening. But it goes to show that area is very important for men. And for us women, we need to take into consideration that is something really important to them. The fact that, that there's a difference on the spicy things that men watch to get themselves to that point and what we understand or what it takes for us to get to that point. those Hallmark, or those rom-coms, those are the ones. That's how we think that things should be. Whereas men, it's like, no, we're going in. There's none of that, like, soft talking and making a picture of this, because that's not how they function. And you see a lot of these women getting fooled by those men that talk a good talk and paint them the pictures, and they tell them so beautiful things, but the action is not there. Again, remember, men are beings of action. They will show you with what they do rather than what they say. So if you have a man telling you these all beautiful things, filling your ears with things, but it's not matching with what they do, that's some questionable behavior.
I couldn't agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Irving is saying, well, if she doesn't have a genuine respect for you, I don't believe she truly loves you. I would agree. And I would add on to that, ladies, if you don't respect your man, you can't love that man. Because love requires sacrifice, love requires admiration, love requires selflessness. And if you don't think that that man is better than you at something in any way, if you don't admire him, if you don't believe that the man that you have can teach you anything, then you don't respect him. That's what gives you those wandering eyes. That's what have you listening to other men or women in your ear telling you you can do better. That's where things start to fall apart. That's why I tell the women that I talk to, do you respect him? I don't want to hear how he makes you feel until I know that you respect that man, because when it gets tough, that's what's going to hold you. Because that love is great and that's a slow burn over time. But if we're being honest with ourselves, those of us in long-term relationships and marriage, there are some days you were just holding on. Maybe you don't like each other that much, but that respect is always there. All right. Let's see what else you all are saying in the chat. Jasmine has answered. She says, before she respected her husband, she was controlling, critical, combative, uncooperative, and ungrateful. Wow, that is a lot. And I'm so proud of you for admitting that. That takes a lot of bravery. And I'm so happy that you were able to turn that around. And now she says her marriage is beautiful. Imagine what her husband says. She says it's beautiful. She did all of this and now respects him. And she's getting the benefit. So remember that, ladies. Those of you all who say, why should I do anything? He hasn't done anything for me. Why do I always have to go first? Here we have a wife who said, I changed my behavior and I'm happier. All right. Jasmine says, I had to take responsibility for these behaviors and take accountability. That's a woman right there. She says, he was never the problem. I was. That makes my whole Valentine's weekend. This is what heals and makes every day Valentine's Day. Some of y'all are going at each other, and then if he doesn't bring you flowers and take you out, he doesn't really love you. This is how you show love every day. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. And see, Irving says, yes, that's a big step. God willing, your blessing will come. Her blessing is already here. Jürgen says the naturalness between a man and a woman was destroyed by feminism. Yeah, ladies, unfortunately, ask yourself. Look at the raging feminists. And again, believe what you want to, but would you trade places with them? How do men treat them? The ones that are screaming and shouting with their fist up in the air, are the men looking at them, the men that you admire, the men that you have, or the men that you want? Do they look at these women and say, I would love to be in a relationship with her? Or do they say, run, don't walk, run? Ask yourself. And see, Irving says, yes, agreed. Respect is the pathway. And Charles says, women want to be admired by the men we are attracted to. That's true, ladies. And here's the takeaway. You heard Dr. Orion say that there was a lot in that message, but he said, when we talk about, respect all women, or you got to respect me, he said there's really an asterisk there, because the men that we want them to be a little bit flirty. We want them to be a little mischievous. It's okay if you kind of compliment what I'm wearing. It's okay if you like my figure in this dress. But the men that you don't want, you're a creep. How could you do that? Ladies, men are men. You're not going to have it both ways. So you got to choose if you want to lead with your chest out, like the kids say it with your chest, and have respect at all times. Just know that the men that you want, they're going to be like, okay, well, that's what she's about. Let me take my attraction somewhere else. All right. That's an option. And Bert says, if you don't respect yourself, you can't respect me. Charles says, I have women telling me they are millionaires. I'm like, that going to change how I feel about them? Oh, yes. These boss babes, I'm a millionaire, I'm a CEO, all these things. And you think it's helping you win over the man. It doesn't impact them. Not in the way that you want a man to feel about you. All right. Yes, accountability made my day. Shout out to Jasmine. That's amazing. All right, let's go back in.
Could that lead to some conflicts?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
between men and women, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a couple of my friends about the video that I had released with you earlier, the one that I titled Women Don't Want Equal Relationships. And then it was all about what do equal relationships mean? What do they want when they're saying they want a 50-50 relationship? And one of the pushbacks was, no, what an equal relationship is that it's equal levels of respect. I said, okay, well, what does that mean? They say, well, it's equal levels of decision making. And then I was thinking, well, women are attracted to men who are more experienced, have more money, more financial prospects, all this, right? So if they're attracted to that kind of person who has accrued the experience that would make them a better decision maker, does it make sense to have equal?
No.
Okay. Equal levels of decision making?
No, I mean, I don't think it does. And I think that's also a function of where the man and women are when they decide to enter into the relationship. When people are high school or college sweethearts and they both have limited experience and they both have in either the real world or in having relationships, yeah, they can kind of like stumble along together in a lot of respects. But if I'm receiving attention from women because I am a doctor, or I am wealthy, or I am famous, or I am high status, then and if I am significantly older and more experienced in relationships, then it doesn't make sense that we would equally share the direction or the decision making of that relationship. Because I've spent potentially years creating the structure of my lifestyle before you, the woman, even showed up. So the person who built the ship is generally in the best position to helm it because they actually created it, plank by plank. They know it better than anybody else. This gives them, I think, legitimate authority to direct the course of that ship. And of course, the flip side of that is that they're more responsible for the ship as well, because you can't really have power without responsibility, at least not legitimate power. So the person who built that structure should be empowered to direct that structure. And that person who built that structure is also going to be on the hook for addressing any problems that come up within that structure. You can't have it both ways.
How should the people in a relationship approach that? Because women feel respected when they feel considered, when they feel heard, and when they're, when they're heard and considered. But men maybe feel that they have more right to decision making, especially when it comes to things that they have more experience with.
Yeah, it's difficult. There's not going to be a one size fits all solution here. Like I said, I think that I made a video once that only founders get equity. So if a woman and a man get together when they kind of both have nothing and they both build the structure of their lives together, then I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be equal shareholders in the direction of that lifestyle or relationship. Because they built it. They're one of the founders, right? But if you weren't involved in the construction of the lifestyle and you just show up once it's become a successful extrapolated thing, you don't typically get equity, you get a salary.
All right, ladies. Well, he's hurting our feelings again, but this one is really important because I hear, especially young women, shouting about this 50-50. And those of you women who want that high value man, and you're going to show up after he's already done all of the work on his own and think you have a seat at the table, you're wrong. This is why Lucy and I encourage women who want relationships to prioritize it in your prime. There is nothing out here in this world that you can't do with your husband that's going to benefit your marriage. But these women that want to have all these experiences, I'm going to tell you, like mean old mister said, you're going to give your best years to somebody. I didn't get it. So why should he consider you? You did whatever you wanted to do for as long as you wanted to do it. So the way he would tell you, sit down, shut up, and learn something. That's the way men speak. All right. If that's too hard for you, consider the type of man that you want. But this is why, ladies, especially the young ladies that we are reaching out to, if you want to have your voice heard, if you want to have input, the only way to do that is to earn that by getting there before he has already built himself. Ladies, if you show up when he has crossed that finish line, you are on his timeline. And like he said, you're getting a salary. There is no equity for you. So again, your decision to make. But the helm of the ship, Lucy and I have both bought a Psychax audiobook, highly recommend it. But he talks about it like captains and passengers. Somebody is leading and somebody is getting on board. Ladies, you have to decide what role you want to play. And those of you leading with your accomplishments, just make sure you're ready to be that captain until you're 65. My man calls it breadwinner and chief of staff. It takes the gender out of it. Those of you all arguing about men can do anything or women can do anything that men can do, that's fine. But just know if you take on that captain or you take on that breadwinner role, then you're going to be, like he said, the one with the responsibility when stuff starts, breaking down. You're going to be the one everybody's looking at like, what do we do now? And if you're okay with that, that's fine. But if not, I would encourage you to be the best passenger and help that captain navigate, or be the best chief of staff and help that breadwinner create a home that everybody thrives in. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and I think that that's the reason why so many relationships are just, break so quickly, because the woman wants to take that 50-50, that it applies to everything without having earned the respect of the man. Again, men, learn earning respect from when they're born, from when they understand what it is to have respect. So again, I think that men now see that 50-50 equality type thinking. They don't even want to deal with it. They hear that, and that's kind of like a red flag that immediately says, yeah, she's not the one for me. And then they take a U-turn and they ghost, or they just have fun as long as it can. And then when they find the one that shows that is willing to follow and be cooperative and does not believe on that 50-50 nonsense, that's the one that gets the ring.
Absolutely. I'm going to see what you all are saying in the comments, but I'm going to tell you, like mean old mister, I'm going to give you an example of, I'm going to help you mean what you say. So young ladies who think 50-50, I want a partner. Y'all have heard me rail against that. This is what he says when he hears partner. Okay. So you're going to be the one shoveling the snow and I'll be inside making the hot cocoa. Where are the marshmallows? Just tell me, I'll do it. No, you missed a spot over there. That's how men look at 50-50. When you say, you know what, I want to work, maybe about 10 years, and then I want the option to either work part-time or not working. He said, okay. So when I'm ready to stop working, I have the option too. I can work part-time and you've got this, right? So ladies, we've got to think it through. This is why men, like Lucy said, they're not even listening to you with that 50-50 because they know we can't carry it out. Maybe you can. Fine. But if you want a traditional relationship, ladies, the sooner we accept our strengths, are different from a man's strengths, you'll be so much more successful in your relationship. All right. JTG says, I've never had conversations with my boys where a woman's income or success made them more attracted to us. There you go, ladies. Work. That's great. Just know that that is not what the man is attracted to you for. All right. Not the type of man that you want. Jurgen is agreeing. Mark is going to watch the playback. And Jurgen says, therefore, a certain age difference is important. And young ladies, you may bristle at this. My ex-husband's 7 years older. Lucy's husband's older. Men need that time because that time comes with experience and a certainty. So when things break down, they can carry the load. Yes, you can figure it out together, but is that really what you want? Ask yourself. And Jasmine is saying, thank you. You are welcome, my dear. Neil Moses says it makes sense. And Irving says, yes, that's a red flag. It's childish and immature. Neil Moses says, partnership has never been a thing in the Bible. It's just a modern concept misleading women for family. Let's go back in.
Because you didn't assume a lot of the risks and expenses and responsibilities to develop that company, to develop that lifestyle. So you wouldn't be entitled to share in the decision-making or the revenue of that company as if you were somebody who assumed those risks, expenses, and responsibilities. That doesn't make any sense. But of course, it is a tactic to potentially get more power than might be appropriate.
Does this conversation of equal relationships and differences in opinion of what an equal relationship means come up very often, say from your clinical experience? Because I feel like it doesn't really show up too much here in Japan. So I guess what I'm saying is, living here in Japan for such a long time, my perspective in terms of like how much of this is an issue, I don't have the best perspective, but what do you think?
Oh yeah, it comes up a lot. And usually it has to do with investment in a relationship. And the fact of the matter is that you can be invested emotionally, like in terms of devotion or loyalty, and you can be invested materially in terms of things that you do or ways that you instrumentally support the lifestyle. Okay. And in general, one person is invested more in one way than the other. In general, the person who's more materially invested is less emotionally invested, and vice versa. But not always the case, but that's generally what's true. And what can often happen is that people argue about which form of investment is more valuable. And this is the situation where, stereotypically it could be like, hey, I'm the woman, I'm cleaning the house, I'm raising the children, I do all of that, you do nothing. I do so much, I'm invested, you're not. And so I deserve to have a greater share of the power and the authority. By the same token, the man could say, yeah, but I pay for everything. I'm going out and working, and I'm surrendering that income that I could otherwise keep to myself to support you and the children. And so I deserve more power and decision-making authority. And so they go back. So these arguments that are subject to arising about investment are really about power. And the goal of these conversations is to try to convince the other person that they're benefiting more.
I see.
Because if I can convince you that you are benefiting more from me than I am from you, then you need me more than I need you, which puts me in a more powerful position.
So that's ultimately because they want to feel like they're in a more powerful position?
Sure. Who wants to feel like they're in a less powerful position?
So is it going to be constantly a tug of war throughout the whole relationship? And do you ever find a balancing point?
It depends on the personalities of the people involved. I mean, there are some folks who, because of their ideals or their temperaments, they want as close to an equal power dynamic as possible. Now, I don't think it's possible for two people to have exactly the same amount of power in any kind of dynamic. So one person will always have more, one person always has less, but the gap there could be very small. Some people are more comfortable with bigger gaps. It just sort of depends on the temperaments and the personalities of the people involved. big power gaps can actually be very stable.
This is probably super simplistic, but you would think that a woman would be more comfortable in the lower power position because in general she's attracted to people who are more powerful than her, men who are more powerful than her.
Yes. Yeah. But it's complex, right? Have you ever felt crummy about something that you did too?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Like, I hate that I love that.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so it sounds like this could go two ways. Is she is attracted to a guy who's more powerful than her, but she actually doesn't, she kind of resents it to some degree. So then she wants to engage in this tug of war. Or could it be a form of, let's say, testing his capabilities of, okay, if you're really that powerful, I'm going to fight with you for it. And depending on your reaction, that'll give me like some reassurance that you are deserving of the powerful position that you're in.
That can happen for sure. Yeah. Well, one of the prerogatives of the less powerful party is to test the more powerful party. I talk about that in the book. I talk about captains and passengers. Captains have challenges they need to overcome, and passengers have prerogatives that they can execute. And one of the three prerogatives of the passenger is to test the captain. And that makes all the sense in the world. Like, people generally don't treat cars that they test drive very well, right? As soon as they're out of earshot of the dealership, they are slamming on the brakes and whipping around corners and kicking the tires because they want to stress the system. They want to create every opportunity for any latent defect or problem to emerge before they sign the contract. And then afterwards, they generally drive the car off the lot with the most care than they ever will in their entire lives, right?
All right, so I want to unpack a little bit about what he said, and then we got about 6 or 7 more minutes left in this clip, and we'll wrap it up. When he was talking about the power dynamic, again, ladies, those of us who think that 50-50 is the way to go, there's never a true 50-50. Hopefully, I've given you some reasons why you may not want 50-50, especially as you age, right? Take it from the older women. That 50-50 goes out the window. But the difference in power, not only can it be, if you heard him, Dr. Taraban said that there can be great differences in the power dynamic and the relationship works really well. So stop trying to wrestle your man to the ground. Stop trying to fight and say, I need to know everything. I need to see everything. I need to, you got to run everything by me. That's not how this works. And the other thing that I love that he said when he was talking about couples who are competing, again, which is a masculine trait, when the man is saying, I pay for everything or I provide, and the woman is saying, well, I keep the home, they're never going to be equal because they're not supposed to be equal. And if you heard him, he said, usually one person, the captain in his example, the breadwinner in my man's example, is usually going to be more financially invested. And because of that, they will be less emotionally invested. So ladies, if you have a man who is doing that backbreaking job that he hates and making sure that you all have a roof over your head and food on the table and insurance in case of accidents, stop getting mad at him because he doesn't know your kid's teacher's name and it's Teacher Appreciation Week. Likewise, ladies, we are the ones, if you want a traditional relationship, our superpower isn't keeping the home fires burning, is in making sure everybody is warm and taken care of, is making sure that everything runs like a well-oiled machine. So if you want to be that passenger, if you want to be that chief of staff, your contribution may not be or probably won't be as financial, but you have a huge emotional investment, that mother's love, that wife's heartbeat, that feminine touch, the woman's touch that we all talk about. So again, young ladies especially, do not buy into this lie that you got to make what he makes, or, he's got to take it from me. He gets a promotion and you got to get a promotion. That is not how real relationships work over the test of time. What would you add, Lucy?
Yeah, and seeing that competitive nature, it must be so exhausting. I mean, I imagine, and you got to give it to men. They have so much grace for us. for all the, the stories that we paint in ourselves, thinking that we can be exactly like them, which will never happen. It hasn't happened for centuries, and it's not going to happen ever, because we are built differently for a reason. So that competitive nature is so masculine, wanting to be like, like your husband or like your boyfriend. That is, and again, we don't really realize that having that burden on us, we're going to have to also be responsible for the consequences. So why not have that one person that has more, that's more wisdom, that's much more used to having that burden on them, take on the responsibilities? Quite honestly, I would be exhausted having to compete with my husband. Are you kidding me? No, please, you know what? Make the decisions. Thank you for giving me a beautiful home, beautiful house, beautiful everything. Thank you for making those decisions, because I would be overwhelmed with everyday decisions that he has to make every second of his life since he's been doing this. So again, I just don't think women have any idea what it is to have that level of responsibility on your shoulders.
Absolutely, and definitely not for a lifetime. So, ladies, take it from the older women. You don't want to be doing this when you're our age, all right? Jurgen says, women who test and provoke have lost immediately. Jasmine says, leadership comes with a lot of responsibility that we women do not want, nor are we able to handle it. That part. I know, like, I can't even choose what I want off of a menu. Give me too many options, and here come the tears. I can't take it. JTG is agreeing and is proud of us. Thank you. And Jasmine says, femininity thrives under masculine leadership and decision making. Could not have said it better. All right, let's go back in and see if we can wrap this up.
No one treats a car better than a new owner. But no one treats a car worse than somebody that hasn't made a decision yet.
It reminds me of this in David Buss's book, Evolutionary Psychology. He gave an example of a bullfrog, I think it was, and they would select their male partners by literally ramming into them.
Yeah, I know that
and
one.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And so seeing how much
they can withstand, right?
Yeah, how much they can withstand or recoil or whatever.
Yeah, because there's a lot of deceptive signals in the marketplace. There's a lot of people playing dress up. It's very easy to buy a captain's outfit.
So this concept of a shit test is, the idea is that women will act a certain way, not necessarily because, or they might say like, oh, why don't you ever do this? And it doesn't necessarily mean if you do that thing, I will be happier and the relationship will be better. It is more to test the reaction, to kind of assess, to further assess the competence or the just nature of their partner.
It can be.
And do you think that's pretty common, or that's a rare occurrence?
Yeah, it's fairly common. It should, however, die down after you sign the contract, just like the test drive. If a woman is still testing years into a relationship, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Ruling out the possibility that the man has somehow declined over that timeline, like he's lost some status or his wealth, or he's not doing the things that he used to do, then the testing might resume again. But in the absence of that, it's like after years, you should have made your decision. And the testing becomes an expensive distraction from the actual purpose of the relationship if it goes on for too long. The purpose of a relationship is not to test the integrity of the relationship. It's to do other things. It's to raise children, or to make love, or to enjoy each other's company. It's not to constantly focus on the relationship.
Sure, but do you think it could still appear at some points, maybe just kind of want to poke at him because it's fun?
It can happen because that the man is somehow in a decline, or that the relationship is becoming more serious and it's entering into a more considerable level of emotional investment. So if a woman is engaging with a man more or less in a casual style, that there might be some testing, usually not that much. But if she starts to fall in love or develop feelings, or there's talk about marriage or children, there might be a resumed and more intensive stage of testing at that time, because that might not be how she was really approaching that guy up until that time. And so now she has other factors or qualities that she needs to assess before she can feel comfortable about moving the relationship to that stage.
Not the best analogy, but maybe stress testing yourself a bit before you decide to run a marathon. Like, okay, let's see let me kind of put myself to the test and do like a half marathon before I agree to a marathon. Okay, something like that.
Or you can think about it in a corporate perspective, which is you might have been hired at this job, but hopefully you're not going to stay at that level indefinitely over the course of your career. But it's not a foregone conclusion that just because you've put in the time, you're going to be promoted. Usually a promotion comes with other responsibilities and privileges, I hope, and therefore requires different suites of skills. And so the testing occurs again.
Do you run into this with your clients where men seem to be misinterpreting these so-called tests
all the time?
Okay,
because they can be really infuriating. They can. They seem disrespectful. They can seem irrelevant. They can seem arbitrary. They can seem, many different things. Yeah, it's very difficult to feel like, on some level, there has to be a humility in men and in women, I suppose, but in this case, we're talking about men, in men, to allow themselves to be subjected to analysis. That basically means that I'm putting myself lower than you, at least for this time of evaluation.
All right, I just wanted to react to that and apologize, y'all. Always a struggle stream. I could see it. I couldn't realize that you all couldn't see it. So my apologies. So he said a couple of things here that I wanted to react to. The first thing about the stress testing, or the you-know-what testing. Yes, ladies, as much as we are calling the ladies to be better, you should be vetting as you are being vetted. I always say the purpose of dating is to determine if this is a suitable match for marriage or long-term. It's not because you just don't have anything to do on a Saturday night. So when he was talking about that testing, what he said that stood out to me is that testing is for a limited amount of time. This is why, ladies, we teach you in the wife lessons. We do have a discount code for you. It is LOVE. The wife lessons, we actually start that March 8th. You have 30% off. We teach the ladies, like I say, if your mother didn't teach you how to be a good woman to a good man. But what we talk about in the beginning is what to look for. So that is why, like Jürgen said, having that age and experience difference is important. Yes, ladies, you need to know that this man, not only can he protect and provide, but is he emotionally stable? How does he handle pressure? How does he make decisions? Does he have a plan for the future? These are all the things that you need to be looking at, observing. And then once you have said, okay, this is the one that I can get on his program, the tests end. So if you're in a relationship or you're in a marriage and you're still looking for little ways to kind of like see how he's going to respond to this or get a little rise out of something, then you're not helping your relationship. Once you make your decision, and that's why we tell you to choose wisely, you go execute on what you have decided. That was the first thing. And then the second thing that he said about the promotion. And I love that because in his book, Dr. Orion talks about the business world and then relates it to a relationship concept. But he said, you may come into a job at an entry level, but you don't get promoted just for being there. You don't get promoted just because you've spent time there. So a lot of ladies who just think, I just show up, well, I've just been here. We've just been doing this thing. If you don't have the skill set that he values in the wife that he wants, then you won't get promoted. You will just be there until he finds someone who does have the skill set that he's looking for. So you need to continually be evaluating and understanding what he's looking for and how you're measuring and assess yourself so that you can get that promotion if he wants to give it to you. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And also, There's actually, if you're with a masculine, good man, you don't have to even do those that type of testing. The man, once he's not confused about who he wants as his future wife, he will start involving you in any of the comments that he says. In 5 years, I plan that we're going to have a house and on the hill with a picket fence. He starts telling you how he is involving you in his life for the future. There's really no reason for you to start nagging him about, am I in your life? What are we going to do? There's no once he starts feeling pushed about being asked about things that you want him to do with you, that's going to push him away. Allow him to spend time with you. Show him that you are the asset to his life, and then he will automatically will start putting you as part of his future plans.
I love that. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat on my struggle. Thank you again, Suave D, for the $5. Appreciate it so much. And yes, Lucy is right. And maybe I need to correct what I've been saying. One of the men that supports the channel says, ladies, there's really nothing that you can say because you can't influence a man. You show up as the best version of yourself, and he will determine if you're worth that promotion. All right. So let's see what you all are saying. We got the International Quiet Storm in the house saying, I lived in Japan for 3 years. I was depressed for a long time when I had to come back. I miss it so much. Traditional culture there is necessary to survive in Japan. Thank you for saying that. And yes, ladies, I know we live in the modern world and we have all these devices most of the time that I mess up, but the men that we want have a sense of duty and honor that ties back to how it's worked for generations and centuries. So if you think you're going to pull up as a modern woman and he's just going to do it the way that I want it done, you'll just find yourself alone. All right. So again, sorry for the audio. Let's see what you all are saying in here. Ooh, Jurgen says women today want everything for free. Yikes. So ladies, we talked about that in the beginning. Make sure you are earning it. All right. Yes. Shout out to us. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Now that we've learned that men look at respect as something that is earned, all right, you don't get it just for showing up. Bert says, if you want responsibility of my life, walk in my shoes and then tell me if you want the responsibility. And Jasmine says, Lucy, you're right. That competition is exhausting. All right, I think we got one last clip yet and we'll be done.
You wouldn't go up to someone of higher power and authority and suggest that I need to evaluate you. That would be impudent. And that can be interpreted as impudence in sexual relationships as well.
I see.
If it's not handled with patience and humility by the man on the one hand, and with tact and, let's say, care on the part of the woman.
It makes sense. I mean, you don't want to stress test the guy to make sure that if something important does come up, or later in the future when something does important come up, he's not just going to kind of flip out or maybe even be violent or something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But you have to understand that the bigger the power differential between any two people, the harder it is to accomplish that.
Right.
It's like if I were to go up to a presidential candidate and just say, hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I need you to tell me why I should vote for you. It's like, well, who are you to demand that of that person's time and attention?
Yeah.
And it certainly probably wouldn't be worthwhile for that candidate to take a lot of time out of his campaign to try to convert the heart and mind of a single voter. Do you understand? There's an opportunity cost associated with that the private citizen just might not even be able to consider. So the bigger the power imbalance, the harder it is to actually test.
So why don't we switch gears for a bit? I wanted to ask you a little bit about depression and sex differences in depression, or differences between men and women in terms of what leads to depression.
All right, so we're going to end it there. This again is about a 2-hour interview. I wanted to cover that 30-minute section when it came to respect. I think we had some really great takeaways there. And for me, one of the biggest things, like we've already said, is that men look at respect very differently, ladies. That's why men, if you study men, the way that they admire, you may think it's foolishness, but look at how the men that we love admire, athletes, or, someone who broke the world record, or a certain billionaire, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But the point is, men look at what another man has achieved and said, I can respect that, because they know that that person has done something that they themselves haven't done. All right. The last thing that I'll say, when he talked about this stress testing, ladies, we really have to consider that power differential. And I remember this when we used to watch the late great Kevin Samuels, when young women would just come in talking to him like he was one of their peers. I always tell ladies to especially humble yourself and read the room. You don't know that man's story. You don't know what he's been through. And like Bert said, I bet you wouldn't trade places with him. I bet you wouldn't walk a mile in his shoes. So that can get you a long way, because why does that man owe an explanation to you? And a lot of modern women miss out on that, because you think you're no better than me, you're no different than me. But if he's done something that you haven't, and those of us from traditional cultures, if he's lived longer than you have, that age alone, we were raised to respect that, because that age came with life experience that you don't have. And so, you know what? I know we live in the modern world, and especially in these Western cultures, a lot of young people think, doesn't matter. I'm 20 years old and I'm going to give you some advice. Fine, have it your way. But ladies, we are not entitled to a man's attention. We are not entitled to an audience with him. They do not have to listen to us, and they don't have to explain anything to us. So just be very careful of that. I think humility, reading the room, listening to them the first time and following through on that, and earning their ear is the way to get the attention that you want, instead of kicking down the door and saying, you need to respect me because I'm me. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and unfortunately, in this modern world, we've been sold the idea that the more assertive you are as a woman, the more respect you're gonna get. Uh, Probably at work, because they have to. But when it comes to relationships, a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, that's not the way to go. Respect the man for who he is, and for his accomplishments. Acknowledge his accomplishments. Be grateful for what he does for you, and again, just, you don't have to be on par to what he does.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what you all are saying, and then we will wrap it up. Jasmine says, yes, Maggie, menus are difficult for me too. Ladies, like Lucy said, let your man take the lead. He's better at it, and you will appreciate it, believe me. Or you can fight till the death, if that's the hill that you need to die on. Shout out to the dogs. You all know they are always here giving us their agreement. All right. So yes, we were talking about impudent and what that means. Yeah, ladies, that just means, like we say in the South, act like you've been somewhere. Have some couth about you. All right. Read the room, ladies. Reggie says, wives are ready for husbands and women are looking to be wives. We hope so. Those are the young women that we want to reach. And Jasmine says, thank you, ladies, for sharing your incredible wisdom. Your content is so beneficial to helping the modern woman. And that is what we are going to end on. I'm so grateful for you all being here. Thank you to our sponsors, Suave D, for the $15 and $5 total $20. But again, this is our heart. Lucy and I are here for the younger women who still want a traditional relationship and marriage in the modern world. It's doable, but you have to be intentional about it and stand out for the right reasons. Okay, go against the grain. So we are with you all 2 days a week. We're with you all on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So turn on your notifications. And the 30% off Valentine's code that we have, the banners going along the bottom, it's only for this this weekend. So I believe it expires tomorrow at midnight. So ladies, if you want to join us for the wife lessons, workbooks are going out, and it's a 4-week course. It's a Saturday school. We have some videos up there now. You can go ahead and start doing some self-study, but we will teach it live starting Saturday, March 8th. So again, ladies of all ages, and if you're already married, we had some wives with us the last time that wanted that refresher because they wanted to be the best version of themselves for their husbands and for their families, and it was our honor. What would you say to close us out, Lucy?
This was a great live stream. It was. I always love to see the men's perspective on life, and how they see things that we women tend to just think that we're here in the world and the world just happened, and we can do it just exactly like the men after they've already built the world for us. Anyway. Thank you all for being here. And I don't know if are we going to take a look at the second half next time, Maggie, or do you want a new
I think
version?
A new one. I watched this one, and he starts talking a lot about the depression and the research on mental illness. So I think a new one for relationship would be great.
Okay, I'll send the new one.
Oh, GT Coin Rings coming in right when we end with the 199. Yes. Saying, take care, ladies, and have a good night. Thank you all so much. So enjoy your Saturday, and we will see you all next week. Until then, we will say adios. Bye.